Hello, this is Fear Dragon, and welcome to Breaking Out, the show about North American StarCraft 2 players. Every Friday and Saturday, we'll take a look at an up-and-coming North American player to learn more about their personality and their playstyle. Over 4 weeks, we'll take a look at 8 players before they participate in the Breakout Invitational for over $1,000. Let's learn a little bit about the next Breakout player.
My name is Evan EJK Kim. My age is 20 and I play Terran. What do I do for a living? I am a full-time student. I placed top 32 at Red Bull Detroit. Jadon also placed top 32 and Bunny also placed top 32. So EJK equals Bunny equals Jadon. My playstyle is fairly standard. I don't really do anything out of the ordinary. I guess I would just consider myself a pretty textbook Terran. I like to play macro games. I think they're the funnest games to play. And I really like getting into the late game and just having a lot of stuff, a lot of econ management to do and all different kinds of things. Just having to like micromanage a much larger economy as the game starts to pick up. It's probably the funnest part for me. I'm hardworking. I play Terran. That should be something. I just want the chance to compete against other good North American players to show the best games possible to the viewers. It really, I think like one of my goals is to become the kind of player that people look up to, and by that I mean when you watch a game, like when you watch a VOD of me, I want people to finish watching it and then be like, oh, that was good, that was a good game, he played that game very well. And like I want to watch more of him, more StarCraft games in general, and really show people how much of an art StarCraft is, along with the fact that it's a very hard game as well, but to see the beauty that can be pulled off in different situations.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Breaking Out, the show about North American StarCraft 2 players that you need to know about. My name is Fear Dragon, and today I am joined here by the one and only EJK. How you doing today, man?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing quite fantastic on this lovely Saturday. And, I'm just going to go straight into the questions, man, because there's something I've got to ask you about, all right? And it has to do with your Liquipedia profile and your Ligulac profile. I see the smile on your face. You know what I'm talking about, all right? Because there's a bit of confusion that I always end up hearing, and I know I was confused even a little bit, about where you were born, when did you move to America, how long have you been in America, and do you consider yourself an American or a Korean more?
I'm just a big troll. I know what people are talking. I know what people are talking about, like when they're confused, because it really depends how you define it. It's a technicality thing. Technically, I am Korean. My grandparents and my parents are all from Korea. I'm like 100% Korean. So yes, I am Korean. I have lived in America my whole life, though, so I could also consider myself very American as well. I do have a lot more Western culture in me, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for those who don't know what we're talking about, if you actually look up EJK on Liquipedia or Ligulac or a lot of these other sites, you'll notice that he has that great old Korean flag by his name. But of course, he's on Breaking Out North America, and we don't generally let a lot of Koreans onto this show. So how have you been? Because you were actually also a player on for season 2. So what have you been up to lately, man? I've been seeing more and more of you.
Well, mostly becoming a more active member in the community. I did a bunch of YouTube videos. I also have started making a bunch of GIFs of funny things or just interesting things that happen, and then I post them on Reddit to share with the community. And I'm also a full-time student now, so I'm taking full workload. So so that's how I balance my time nowadays.
I'm glad that you actually brought up the whole being a full-time student thing, because last time that we were on, you were on for season number 2, you mentioned how you had time. Time was like one of your greatest assets because you were, I think you said you were like a part-time student, you weren't taking a very heavy load for classes, but it sounds like that's sort of changed. Do you feel like that's been impacting kind of your ability to practice or play as much?
Uh, Impacting, yes. Obviously, when you have other responsibilities going on, you aren't going to be able to put as much time into StarCraft. But I just make the best of what I have, so I don't really see it as that much of a handicap.
Mhm. Cool. And what exactly are you studying now?
I'm just taking a bunch of classes to finish up a business administration degree, and then I'm going to transfer to another college.
Hmm.
They're just basic classes, so they're not like, or it's just I'm just taking an accounting class and a microeconomics class and then a model United Nations class right now.
So it sounds like you have a pretty kind of diverse portfolio on like what the classes you're taking is. You just kind of feeling out what you want to end up doing.
Not really. I'm working towards a degree in finance eventually. I'm just not in any rush to get it.
Hmm.
I'm already 20 and I'm kind of halfway to getting my half degree towards
Hmm.
finance, so I'm not really in any rush to graduating by like 22 or anything like that.
Well, you know what? I want to talk a little bit about it's about finances and it's about economics, but it's not necessarily about the economics of the real world. It's about the economics of TVZ because you said something very interesting in your application video, all right? You told me that you are much more of a macro, you enjoy a lot of the macro oriented play, you enjoy a lot of those late game plays, but that's sort of kind of different than what you used to tell me last time you were on, where you actually would say stuff like, I oftentimes prioritize my micro over my macro. So I'll let my macro slip a little bit in favor of like making this kind of cool micro play happen. And I was really curious about that. What kind of happened? What caused the switch up?
I guess there aren't really that many all-ins you can do, and macro play is just overall better. So I still have my little moments during macro games. They're and I've started to appreciate how long and how drawn out they can be, and with the different kinds of things that you can do as well, that it opens up a lot more possibilities playing a 20-minute game versus playing a 5 or 10-minute game. And you have a lot more strategic options available, like going from a 2 base to 3 base to 4 base economy as well.
All right. So if you had to kind of identify one big strength and one big weakness in your TVZ, what would those two things be?
I guess my biggest weakness would be trying to end the game quickly. I always, no matter, like, even if I get a small advantage, I will always try to push that advantage. And sometimes I push it too far and I end
Hmm.
up losing my army because of that. And I fall really far behind. And then that small advantage I had is suddenly worthless.
Hmm.
My biggest strength, I guess, would be getting those small advantages. I get them very often. And that's why I look for those kinds of advantages. And once I have them, I really try to push it, but
Hmm.
sometimes I just over push it and things go wrong from there. Definitely my like style is very flashy. It's
Hmm.
controlling individual amounts of units as precisely as possible, not necessarily having the biggest army, but having the army that fights the best, I guess.
Hmm. And how do you feel specifically about Terran versus Zerg as a matchup? Do you feel you're pretty comfortable with it, or maybe struggling with it a little bit?
I'm pretty comfortable. I think it's a very dynamic matchup. Each race has their different macro builds, their different all-ins, their different greed builds that they can do to beat each other. I don't really particularly think it's more imbalanced towards one race or the other right now.
Hmm. And just in relation to the other matchups, would you say that you're feeling better about it than say like TVT and TVP, or not as good about it?
I think it depends on the day, but like sometimes it'll be TVZ, other times it'll be TVT, but right now TVP is always on the bottom.
All right. Well, we're gonna come back to that one a little bit because first we want to check out your Terran versus Zerg. Don't worry, don't go anywhere, guys. We will be right back.
It's game time! Terran versus Zerg.
Start in 3, 2, 1.
Game resumed.
Welcome to the Terran vs. Zerg, everyone. I'm going to be joined here today by the one and only Zombie Grub. How you doing today?
What's up, Pure Dragon?
Not a whole lot. I mean, we're going to cast a little bit of StarCraft, but that is pretty much all that's going on in my mind right now. So we're going to jump in and introduce the players as we spawn down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. We have the red Terran player. He's the highlight player of the day. It is EJK.
In the middle left, as the blue Zerg. Not sure. Barcode.
I was like, are we going to go with the name Not Sure? That'd actually be a pretty cool name. Just like Not Sure.
Yeah. Well, you know, yesterday we cast a guy named Vanilla, right? And that's a pretty vanilla name. And Barcode is also a pretty vanilla name.
Like literally the name Barcode, B-A-R-C-O-D-E. That'd actually be a pretty cool name. I would support a player that's actually picked that name.
They actually start putting the name Barcode instead of like actual barcodes.
Oh god, it's another Barcode player.
Yeah, that'll never happen.
Alright, well, Terran vs. Zerg, again, highlight player of the day and everything. We're talking about EJK and kind of how he likes to play. And we kind of got a little bit of the information in the download about what EJK likes to do and kind of what he feels his strengths and weaknesses are. And the big takeaway I think that I got from it is he really feels like he's good at getting those small advantages, which, I don't know, to me, Terran TVZ has always just been about those kind of small advantages and being able to press them forward, but he sometimes overcommits and can lose those small advantages because he feels like he needs to press it.
Yeah, I think it's a very common problem, especially versus Zerg, but in, you know, all matchups, simply because Zerg, it is about those small things, right? Like, you can technically get a big win off, like, a Hellbat push, and, you know, I don't think that's what EJK is going to do, as you told me before that he's very macro-oriented, and that's what I remember him as a player, so that makes sense. But if it is macro-oriented, then it's just about, you know, the 11-minute push, and then you gotta try and like deal with their banelings, and then you keep on pushing. You can do like the rallying, but it is small unless you're very overpoweringly good. Like there's not really any doom drops that go on, unlike versus Protoss.
Yeah, and kind of just taking a look at his opponent right now, already went for the earlier gas guys are getting up a fast circling speed. And really, I feel like this is a very delayed hatchery going down right now for our Barcode Zerg.
It certainly is. Pool firsts had made a big comeback like a while ago, but lately I've been seeing a lot of Zergs go for pool gas. Snoot has actually been doing this almost every single TVZ we cast in the last like week. And it's really surprising because you would think that it was not economical enough to continue doing. You know, it was almost a cheese build, but apparently not.
Yeah, and I actually really like this response from EJK. I mean, he knows that the Zergans are going to be coming in. He's not really going to be mining over the natural expansions, so just going to retreat back into his main base, can probably make an orbital command and kind of continue on his build sort of unhindered. And it's kind of nice that he did get the SCV scout off in time to see the gas geyser and everything.
Yeah, absolutely nice for not having a Reaper. If there was a Reaper, it'd be a little less stressful, but even then, you see the speed finishes at 5 minutes, not 6. And if you didn't get the scout, or even if you did, that wall off probably is going to be down, and the bunker might not be down. And then that's when things get a little hectic. Although, it's possible to take the SVs out of the natural and keep the command center on the low ground. But hectic nonetheless.
Yeah. Really interesting. We actually had a bunker going down over here for EJK, so maybe he's... I guess if you consider it, like, all he's really seen was that early gas geyser. Because he didn't get a Reaper out, he doesn't really know what his opponent's doing, so this could very well be, like, some kind of really fast baneling bust. He didn't see a natural expansion for a really long time.
That is definitely a fear. I feel like, you know, maybe I bring this up when, you know, Snoot does it, for instance, that this very fast speed, even if they had a Reaper, like, unless you were very sneaky about it, you're not going to get back in there. EJK does burn a scan, and I like that option as opposed to just trying to be like guesswork. Like I think I'm that good that I'll be able to hold a baneling bust anyways, which seems to be a lot of Terran's responses, right? They get the factory on, and then they get 3 Hellions, and they think, okay, I can deal with whatever's down there. which may or may not be true, but now he knows for sure.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and take the natural.
Yeah, and the important thing he saw with that scan was the fact that the gas was no longer being mined, so kind of hard to make banelings if you don't have any gas. That's one of the important criteria for getting banelings, and EJK going to be able to move down over here, finally secure that natural expansion. Now, I'm kind of curious, Jez, do you feel like the fact that this natural expansion was sort of delayed from mining it for such a long time that it's kind of evened out how late the natural expansion for the Zerg was?
Kind of. Like I said, a lot of pros, like Koreans, right? They seem like they just take the SCVs out of the natural, but it doesn't seem to do all that much. But getting the Hellions is absolutely huge. Like more so than delaying the command center, that was big, especially since he's trying to go into a Hellbat build. Of course, you want Hellions for that.
Yeah, and oh my god, actually this Overlord is getting really close to that armory. Oh my god, he's gonna scout it. Oh, doesn't scout it, just barely.
Ooh.
Managed to save that.
Yeah. Well, okay, this is gonna be dangerous. It's 8 minutes, and I feel like the Hellbat was supposed to already be on the way, but these Lings really made it difficult. In fact, having to pick up the Marines again, there's not gonna be a Hellbat push without the aliens.
Yeah, I almost wonder if, like, maybe he would have been better off picking up the Hellions instead of the Marines over there. Like, it would have been a weird kind of thought, but, I mean, as you were saying, like, he needs the Hellions to make the Hellbats. This takes a lot of power away.
It's a very powerful push because of both, though. So, I feel... I don't know. Because on one hand, you want Hellions to make sure that you can secure a third, but the Banshee's going to do that, too. And if you have the Marines, then I think they're more effective as consistent drop material than Hellion drops are. That they either go and die for the drones or they get picked off very easily because they're fairly light. Also, EJK has to make more than the Hellions that he would like to, probably. 6 or 8 is usually the number that you go to. I think he had to go up to 8 or 10 remaking them.
Yeah. And I guess it's also worth considering that, a Hellbat drop, you can make it work with just 2 Hellbats. So he still has that option available to him. The Banshee doing some good damage in the main base. Hellion's trying to poke into the natural.
Oh, nice. Nice pick up on that Queen. Okay, he's out of the Sport Crawler range. No lair yet. Seems like it's a mistake. He did commit to, 20 or so Lings at a fairly odd time to surprise EJK to get those Hellion kills. But I don't think that excuses this lair timing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he maybe was investing some of his early gas and everything into the early upgrades and whatnot, but it is a bit concerning, especially when you are up against this kind of cloak Banshee. I think he got the scout off on the starport with the tech lab and everything earlier on with the Overlord, so yeah, it is a bit strange. He's gonna try and go for a counterattack, not gonna work out too well. EJK is moving out within the second force of units.
I guess, not to rag on the Zerg player a little too much, not having a lair, EJK doesn't have stim either. He hasn't chosen... Okay, no, it's a second factory. Okay, so that's why. So it is going to be mech, and, obviously then mech doesn't... Or, stim doesn't matter, but this push... In terms of the Hellbats, there's no roaches. They're just Lings. In fact, there's no Baneling nest not done yet.
Huh, that's a really good point. I mean, we have 1-1 finishing up. The Baneling nest is just now going to be finishing up. And luckily, the creep spread has bought a little bit of time, but this is where we get to the really awkward situation where the Banelings have got to finish up before these units actually start pushing up one of these 2 ramps.
Oh, misses a couple of chances. Well, I guess he had a chance to use that Spine Crawler for the Queens, but it's a tough decision to make. Both of these units are terrifying, Hellbats and Banshees.
Banelings exploding on a majority of the Hellbats. Managed to kill off the Marines as well at the end over there, but the Banshee and the 2 Hellbats managed to stay alive. These are going to be actually doing a lot of damage until the next wave of units pops out.
Ow. The 6 Queens killed. Zerg player is instantly remaking them, and he's at a decent drone cut at 65. His mutas are finally on the way out, but has he realized that it's mech yet? After the Hellions that were made up because of the Hellions that he lost, that makes sense. Like, a bio player could do that and still be okay. But that attack at that timing, I would be questioning, that's a lot of Hellions, that's a lot of Banshees.
Yeah, I think seeing 4 more Hellions even is kind of going to be a bit revealing of, wait a second, you have 4 Banshees? Wait a second, you have 4 Banshees out right now? I think this has got to be pretty telling.
Yeah. But it's a good thing that he got the mutas then. you know, mutas, he definitely thought it was bio up until this point, pretty sure.
Yeah.
To let attack, you know, getting a baneling nest, only having lings around, and now getting mutas. But mutas are definitely effective as an opener, and even as a play style versus Mac.
And it's a bit concerning actually for EJK right now, I feel like, because you think about how many Hellions he ended up losing in the earlier stage of the game. He had to continue producing a lot more Hellions than maybe he originally would have intended to. At least that's what, like, kind of thinking. So he didn't have necessarily the opportunity to make Widow Mines, or maybe to even get those tech labs up a little bit sooner, to get his Thors up quite as quickly. So I wonder if there's going to be an opportunity for these Beetles to do some damage, but it looks like Thors are doing a pretty good job so far of kind of just pushing them back.
Yeah, cute maker right there. Still get one supply depot, and they're going to get the SCVs.
Two Banshees at the same time, trying to put on their own counter harassment, trying to shut down a base. The Mutalist doing some really nice damage over here. Gonna force at least a full-on retreat over at this third expansion, which is gonna be a huge pain in the ass to defend.
Oh god, more come on, Queens. Get with it, Overseer.
Yeah.
Where is an Overseer?
There's two of them.
Two.
Oh, there's like one sitting in the main or something, and there's one sitting like with the Mutalist.
You know, I think it's kind of like, even though you don't do it, you still think that you did it, that you killed the Banshees, you clean everything up because you have mutas, or that they'd be foolish enough to send them across the map to do anything anyways. So
It's just-
I can kind of understand that.
Yeah, it's just like, well, now that I have detection and I have... Oh, Banelings! Banelings! Oh, EJK! Taking some massive hits over there, and, I mean, he's still doing okay-ish. He's got 61 workers. So his economy's not dead yet, considering, like, I mean, he's not really mining much from his main base, but that was pretty painful to take.
Yeah, that was good for slow banelings when the army was technically right there.
Yeah.
But, not paying attention for a second. Now it is going to be a majority Thor Hellbat base. This is kind of what any person is opening with as mech first, because you would think maybe they get overwhelmed with roaches. Not necessarily. If their timings are crisp enough, they usually have those tanks just popping up by the time a roach count's really scary. Because otherwise, like, Thors aren't bad. And if they have to run in the Hellbats ain't that bad either.
Yeah, and I'm actually really liking the fact that the Zerg player at this point is not making a lot more Mutalisks. I mean, just look at how much EJK actually had to react to the Mutalisks, or, yeah, to the Mutalisks. He's doing some nice Hellion run-bys and everything, but he has just invested so much into missile turrets, leaving his Thors kind of scattered throughout his bases. He's still making, or was still making, more Thors just a second ago. I think that the Mutalisks have pretty much done the damage they need to, in a sense.
I think so as well. That's why, like, they're very good openers versus mech. I mean, if someone knows that their opponent's going to play mech, you see a lot of, for instance, 2-base mutas too. Like, much much faster than what we see here, just to get that control over the map. So I like that EJK has been trying anything at all. The 2 Banshees, yes, they're expensive to kill drones and queens, but they still do good damage, and they're also consistently scouting. So if you got any eyes on the roaches, you can at least prepare for it. Those units aren't quite in position, but these Banshees are going to be the real heroes unless the mutas come over here and kill them.
Oh man, Siege Tanks unable to do the real big damage they need to. The Thors are actually in a pretty high number, and you know, Thors in a high enough number can start dealing some nice damage to the roaches, but as you were saying, it looks like the Mutals can come in and manage to clean up most of the Banshees, if not all of them. And EJK he may be able to hold on over here with the Siege Tanks to take a nice position, but it's going to be just barely.
Yeah, gonna lose a lot of SCVs. Has to cancel the 4th command center, and roaches are so cheap. 30 more are on the way.
Oh god, and more of these SCVs going down. He's dropped down to 47 SCVs. I was saying, you know, 60 SCVs, you can kind of live on that.
Yeah.
40, it was starting to get a bit into dangerous territory.
That is true. What we do see sometimes from the Zerg player, though, is that they have a lack of follow-through when it comes to mech. They think that they go great in the early game, that they go great in the mid game, and then suddenly, you know, oh, I'm 80 supply up, turns in, oh, I'm even supply, and I don't have the greatest tech. That's what mech can do if they can turtle.
Yeah. One thing I will note is that EJK, the units that he does have alive, is actually great against the units that are kind of still left over for the Zerg player. We got a lot of roaches, but as long as EJK, I feel like, is in a good position with his Siege Tanks, he should be in a decent position against this army. I mean, it's just roaches right now. It's kind of going back to what you were saying about tech.
Again, the mutas need to get in here and kill these Banshee. Just one still adds a ton of damage.
Yeah.
And it looks like with the help of the Hellbats, He'll just barely hold on again. Maybe not. He has to look his third. Oh no, he holds.
Yeah, he's gonna be able to hold. But I don't know. The more that I see these trades going on, the more I like it sort of for the Zerg player. Because you think about it, he's sitting on 5 bases, even if not all 5 bases are mining, with the main base starting to get mined out. He's sitting on 5 bases, and he can replenish that supply pretty quickly. It takes a while for a meching player to replenish that supply. He's kind of got to build that up before he can go for that big push out.
Yeah, that's definitely true. We had 24 drones just made. Wow.
91 drilled. That seems dangerous versus a meching player, doesn't it? Like, you need the army that can actually trade against it.
I think for as long as they're feeling pressure and you have them pinned back, then sure, get up to like 90 drones. But yes, eventually turn them into spine crawlers and spore crawlers to cover whatever your next tech is. Now, for our Zerg player, it's going to be back into mutas.
And this is gonna actually, it looks like there's a decent number of these stores around. I love this medevac micro from EJK. He's keeping these, oh my god, he's keeping these stores alive for such a long time. Finally the medevac gets picked off. But even the missile turrets are starting to get into the fight over there.
Yeah. There's so many good things about that micro. You know, of course, changing the damage in between the Thors and the missile turrets and whatnot, absolutely key, but also getting them on the high ground so those SCVs could actually repair.
Yeah.
Was absolutely key. I mean, 2 Thors, you look at that with like 20-ish mutas that he had, and you're like, I got this. Like, this is a win, right? Not if they micro like that.
And look at this. We got a Thor with 14 kills. We got another Thor with 6 kills. And I want to note, missile turrets with 3 and 5 kills. Those are mutalist kills. That's pretty awesome. That's actually pretty well done.
Yeah. And it's so funny to see like a Zerg player, they go gung-ho about the mutas, because mutas can be really frustrating to deal with. I mean, when you play mech, kind of think of it as like you're playing a Protoss player. And if you're a Protoss player, you know how freaking frustrating mutas can be. You're so slow. Even with Blink Stalkers wants to be fast enough, you're just like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, one big concern though for EJK is just the fact that, yeah, as a meching player, you can kind of afford to mine off of 1 base at a time, but you get into a very awkward position when, you know, you're literally mining off of only 1 base right now. You're just your third. You gotta, it gets to the point where when you start trying to take your 4th, you're basically kind of abandoning all other locations because you don't really have a super mobile army to defend your main base anymore, including that production you kind of need.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. But luckily for EJK, I would say the mutas are done with. So expanding won't be the same against like 30 mutas.
That's true.
Like you said, if he expands, he basically gives up the main. Like no amount of turrets really covers 30 mutas. But it's swarm hosts. Now, if you look at the minimap real quick, I mean, EJK's done a great job holding on. But man, the Zerg is really in control. It's up to the Zerg to make a mistake of holding against this push.
Yep, swarm hosts are already burrowing in, and EJK gonna be able to take out this first initial wave of Locusts. Now he's gonna be losing a couple of the Hellbats over here. That's important to note because he doesn't really have that many left over right now.
Oh, I swear, if these Banshees become another problem, there are still mutas out in the field, but if they have to dive into the Thors to get to the Banshees, they will get wrecked. And the Banshees can really make this push so much better.
And right now, the Mutals are trying to put on the harassment right now. Contamination going down in Refinery. Not sure that does anything. But the Mutals, they're kind of, I guess they're not out of position yet. The engagement is still yet to happen.
But the swarm host count is not big enough, not protected enough that there's no small hand roaches, there's no spine crawlers, there's no vipers either. And what sucks is that I think we had that situation where the Zerg player felt really, really in control. They're like, man, I'm doing so well with my roaches. And then they don't have the appropriate tech or just plain old units to deal with this. So swarm hosts are usually A-okay, but as we can see here, still doesn't quite bust through this army as easily as you would think.
Yeah, EJK definitely got timing down for those Swarm Host Locust Waves. Seeking up Siege Tanks immediately when that Locust Wave is going to pop out. Then gets to Unsiege and pushes on forward. And now he's actually, oh my god, actually the Zerg player is kind of backing himself into a corner over here at this base. He's kind of all or nothing on defending this because there's nowhere else to run anymore.
Oh my god, that's terrible for a Swarm Host player. And the Banshees are still alive thanks to a couple of key point defense drones.
Oh man. They're gonna be, you know what, that's actually so beautiful because these Banshees are kind of like the slightly more mobile than the Siege Tanks units that can move in, pick off the base, and then they just sort of retreat back to the safety of those point defense drones. And he kind of like clears the way, and guess what? Next target, Swarm Hosts.
Yeah, there's only one Spore Crawler standing between the Banshees and the Swarm host. The mutas do come in and try and be heroes, but there's so many Thors. They're gonna auto-target those mutas, and they're gonna die.
Oh yeah, there's actually no chance over there. And even if they manage to kill off like some of the Thors, the Banshees are still alive, and they're still going to be able to do massive amounts of damage over here. The Siege Tanks also clean up the Locust Waves, and EJK, he's actually, during the midst of all this, floated his main base also over to his 4th expansion, because he's kind of realizing, I'm not really mining much anymore. If this does go on, I probably should start replenishing my supply.
Yeah. And there's a possibility that the Swarm host and mutas clean this up. It's so, like, Thors... If any part of this army dies, the Thors or the tanks, something can do something.
Yeah.
But none of it is dying. It's just so low.
And I want to know, there's like a lot of patience over here from EJK in how long he actually just sat there with his Thors and Siege Tanks when he knows like the final remaining Locusts and Swarm hosts are right over there. He could just move in, go kill them off. But he's been very, very patient about not like kind of overcommitting and just moving in. And it paid off, it looks like. Oh.
What a GG.
Yeah, GG gets called. Unfortunately, my spam filter's kind of broken. It's, for some reason, showing up as symbols over there for the GG. But congratulations to EJK on that victory. And honestly, I would just say, like, it's very interesting the way that he kind of phrased, you know, his strength is that he's able to get those advantages. But his weakness was that he ends up overcommitting to them. And I feel like that may have happened maybe a little bit in the earlier stages of the game, but I think he did a great job of kind of like, he got a hold of that one big army advantage, and he was able to really, really make sure he didn't overcommit.
Yeah, that was kind of his opponent's problem. More than it is. This was kind of a comeback story. But there were just a couple of things, like everything besides, like when I saw that the hive was not started or not done.
Yeah.
When that push came, I was like, oh, well. Like, why not, right? You had control of this game for 25 minutes. You had, like, 5 going on 6 bases. You could have went up to Vipers, and that would have been a big help.
Yeah. That would have made a world of difference over there. But, you know, that is kind of the way that the cookie crumbles. And nice job for EJK. And, guys, we're going to be going over to the interview for the next... the analysis for the next segment. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the analysis segment. I'm here again with EJK, and we're going to be talking about the ZVT that he actually, or TVZ that he actually sent in. So, Evan, what kind of stuff was going through your head when you sent in this game? What are the kind of the interesting points that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I think there were a couple big points where the game kind of swung in other people's favors. The first one was here when I did my Hellbat Banshee push. It was kind of delayed from how the game opened up. We were both off because of his opener, and it was lower econ and everything should have hit a bit later. But I also waited until 3 Banshees instead of 2 to attack, so the timing could have been a little bit faster, but I wasn't sure on the timing of that. I still take a decent trade, but it's not as good as I would like. With this kind of a push, you generally want to get into the drone line and try to deny some droning time instead of just trading army for army. Because when you trade army for army, it's not a very cost-efficient trade for the Terran player in this type of scenario. And so the push, I end up scouting the push with the Hellions. I see that he has a lot of roaches made. So I know that the follow-up is roaches. It's not fast hive or it's not swarm host. It's just going to be a massive roach push. So I start some siege tanks, which end up kind of helping me survive. The siege tanks are kind of out of, all my units are out of position, and the 2 Banshees can't really get hurt because I have so many Thors, but I just have, I didn't have a lot of units, and the 2 Banshees aren't going to be enough against like 30 roaches. But 5 or 6 Banshees, it's after you get the hit 4 Banshees is when you start being able to 2-shot roaches. Or like in 2 volleys, so that's where the kind of turning point goes. He makes a lot more roaches though, which isn't very good for him because I now have units. I've been making units that will counter roaches, more siege tanks and Banshees. Since I have all these siege tanks now, and I have all my units, like he just attacks straight into my army, I was able to take a pretty decent engagement. It's not the best that I wanted, but I'm still in the game at this point, and that's all you can really hope for, is to stay in the game longer and hope that your opponent can make these types of mistakes and try to come back
Mhm.
with, I guess, more solid play. And this Mutalisk transition, it is a lot later now. Really what turned this game around for me was the fact that he made like 20 plus Mutalisks, and I lost, I believe I lost nothing here with the Thor Micro, which is really good for me. Oh, I think I lost the medevac. Yeah, a medevac for, let's see, about 20 Mutalisks.
Yeah,
It's a pretty good trade.
this is pretty good.
Yeah, he had a couple chances to remax. He remaxed on Roaches. Well, he first maxed out on Roaches, then he remaxed on Roaches, and then he remaxed on Mutalisks. And the Roach max out and the Mutalisk max out, they drained his bank. So he still has a decent bank, but he's no longer in the winnable position that he was in like 5 to 10 minutes ago. And it's now more of an even game. I do have much larger army. Well, not a much larger army, but I do have a big enough army and enough economy so that I can produce units at about the same rate as him.
Yeah, were you concerned at all about like a tech up to Vipers or something, especially with the army composition you have that seems to be like fairly like siege tank and Thor oriented?
A little bit, yeah. I think if he tech to Vipers faster, it would have ended the game for sure. But he stayed on layer tech for such a long time. In fact, he's still on layer tech, and it's 24 minutes into the game.
Yeah.
He went for that Roach switch and then the Mutalisk switch, and seeing those things, and then now the Swarm Host, they all delay Viper transitions. So you know you don't have to, or you know that they're not coming very fast. The Viper rushes really, they kind of they take away a lot from your army value and what you can and cannot do.
Well, awesome, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that analysis from EJK. We're going to be going back to the interview segment. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.